If everything just got worse, your money is 3 days away. Neville Goddard taught that the very hour your outer world seems to be collapsing is the hour your assumption is closest to becoming flesh. And if you have felt every door slam shut this week, if the bills came faster and the good news came slower, this teaching was written for you. In the book of Hosea, chapter 6, verse 2, it is written, "After 2 days will he revive us, in the third day he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight." That is Hosea speaking. And Neville would stop you right there and say, "Do you see it? This was never a prophecy about a nation waiting on a calendar. This is the drama of your own consciousness, written so plainly that men have read it for centuries and missed themselves in it. The 2 days of darkness are not 2 literal days. They are the days you spend believing the report of your senses, the days you spend agreeing with the bank statement, and the empty inbox, and the silence from the man who owes you money. And the third day is not a date on a calendar either. It is the moment you dare to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, while the evidence still says no. And living in his sight is simply what happens the instant you stop looking at what is and begin living from what you want to be. Most people believe the way out of a money problem is to work harder, to worry more cleverly, to chase every lead until they collapse. And Neville would say that very effort, that very worry, is the 2 days of death you keep walking back into. The third day cannot dawn on a mind that refuses to leave the tomb of the visible. So before we go further, let us do the one thing that actually moves you across. Say it with me. I am provided for right now. I am safe in this present moment. Imagination creates my reality. Again, I am provided for right now. I am safe in this present moment. Imagination creates my reality. If you would like tomorrow's teaching to find you the way this one just did, subscribe now so it can reach you. And if something in you just went quiet reading those words, if some old clenched place in your chest just loosened, type the 2 words "it's done" in the comments below. Let it be your seal that you have already crossed over. Not that you will, but that you have. The first key is this. What looks like everything falling apart is very often everything falling into place. And I want you to hear that slowly. Because you have been taught by the world and by your own frightened mind that a run of bad luck means you are being punished, that the car breaking down the same week as the late notice and the argument with your spouse about money means the universe has turned against you. But Neville taught that you never move without moving states, and no state releases its grip quietly. The old state of lack you have lived in, the one that agreed with scarcity, the one that flinched every time the phone rang, that state does not dissolve without some shaking, some final flare before it goes dark. It is not that the universe is punishing you, it is that the stage is being cleared of old scenery so a new set can be built behind the curtain. Think of a house being renovated. Before the new floor can be laid, the old one has to be torn up, and for a few days the whole house looks worse than it ever did. Boards exposed, dust everywhere, nothing where it used to be. And if you walked in during those days without knowing a renovation was underway, you would think the house was being destroyed, when in truth it was being remade. Your life in a hard week is that exact scene. The tearing up is not the ruin, it is the necessary mess before the new floor goes down. Think also of the man who loses his job on a Tuesday, and by Thursday feels like the floor has vanished, and by Saturday, without knowing why, sits quietly and for the first time in months, actually imagines the paycheck arriving with ease. That Saturday exists because Tuesday broke him open. The breaking was the door swinging wide, not a wall closing in. And think too of the storm that darkens the sky just before it clears. The wind picks up, the light goes strange, the branches bend as if they might snap, and anyone watching only that moment would swear the day was ruined. Yet that very darkening is the sign the front is passing through, not settling in. So when everything gets worse all at once, I want you to whisper to yourself, this is not collapse. This is clearance. This is the old state leaving, so I can walk into the new one. The very intensity of the shaking is proof of how close the new floor already is. I release the old state now. My money is 3 days away. The second key is this. You are not the state you are currently standing in. And this single distinction will change how you survive every hard week for the rest of your life. Neville taught that states are like rooms in a great house. The room of poverty, the room of anxiety, the room of ease, the room of abundance. And every room has always been standing there, fully furnished, waiting, long before you ever walked into it, and long after you walk out of it. And you, the real you, the I am, the plain awareness that has been reading every word of this teaching, are not the room. You were never the room. You are the one who moves through the house. So when you say, I am broke, or I am always struggling, listen closely to what you have actually done. You have taken your own name, the sacred I am, and welded it to a piece of furniture. You have mistaken the room for yourself, and then wondered why the door felt locked, when the whole time you were the one holding the key and simply forgot your own hand. Picture a woman 3 weeks behind on rent, sitting at her kitchen table at midnight, the same bill open in front of her for the 4th night running, and instead of rehearsing the fear again, tracing the same fearful groove a little deeper into her mind, she closes her eyes and lets herself feel, just for a few minutes, what it is like to hand her landlord the full amount without a flicker of worry, the paper crisp in her hand, his easy nod, her own steady breathing. She is not lying to herself. She is not performing hope she does not feel. She is remembering who she actually is, underneath the room she has been standing in so long. She forgot it had walls. This is what Neville called moving into a new state by assumption. And notice, the room of lack did not have to be destroyed, argued with, or defeated. She simply stopped standing in it. Now picture a man across town, checking his mailbox every single day at the same hour, hoping for the check, and finding it empty again. And each empty day he lets the room of disappointment close a little tighter around him, until disappointment starts to feel like his personality instead of his address. That is the danger. A state, visited long enough, begins to feel like identity, but Neville taught it is never identity, it is only ever residence. The state cannot argue with you, because a state has no will of its own, it only holds whoever stands in it. Obediently, patiently, without preference, it will just as gladly hold the man who assumes abundance as the man who assumes lack. It does not choose you, you choose it. Every single time, whether you notice the choosing or not. So you are never trapped. Not for 1 hour of one day, you have simply forgotten that you are the one doing the standing. And forgetting is the only wall that was ever real. Tonight, before you sleep, stand somewhere else. Walk quietly out of the room that has held you, and into the one that has been waiting empty and ready this entire time. I am not this state, I move as I please. The third key is this, and it is the hinge the whole teaching turns on. Neville called it living in the end, and it simply means you occupy, in feeling, the state of the wish already fulfilled. Not someday, not when the check clears, but now, tonight, while the evidence still says otherwise. And I want you to understand why this is not wishful thinking, but the actual mechanics of creation. Because the outer world is only ever a projection of an inner assumption. The screen shows only what the film already contains. So if you keep watching the screen for change, hoping the picture will shift on its own, you will wait forever. The shift has to happen in the projector, not the wall. And here is where most people misunderstand the whole teaching. They think living in the end means imagining wildly, working themselves into excitement about a future they do not yet have. And Neville taught the opposite. Living in the end is quiet, it is settled, it carries none of the strain of hoping, because hoping still admits distance, hoping still whispers not yet. But living in the end feels the way it feels to already hold the thing in your hand, calm, unremarkable, almost bored by its own certainty. Think of a traveler who has already arrived home. He does not pace the platform checking his watch. He is simply home, resting. The arriving is finished for him. That is the tone the end must be felt in, not the fevered tone of wanting, but the settled tone of having. Let me walk you through an ordinary day so you can see exactly where most people lose the third day without ever knowing it slipped away. 7 in the morning, she opens her banking app before her eyes are even fully open. The number is low, and her stomach drops, and that drop becomes the note she hums all day without noticing she is humming it. 9 o'clock, a coworker mentions a bonus, and a small bitter comparison rises. Noon, she eats lunch scrolling bills. 3 o'clock, a text from her sister asking to borrow money. 5 o'clock, she drives home rehearsing what she will say if the landlord calls. 9 at night, she lies awake doing arithmetic in the dark, and by then she has lived an entire day, sunrise to sunset, inside the state of lack, feeding it at every single turn, not because she wanted to, but because no one ever told her she was the one doing the feeding. Now picture the same woman choosing differently. 7 in the morning, before she even reaches for the phone, she lies still for 2 minutes and feels, quietly, what it will feel like to check that same app and see relief. She does not check yet, she feels first, because Neville taught that the feeling must come before the fact has anywhere to attach itself. 9 o'clock, the coworker's bonus does not sting, because she is already living from having enough. Noon, she eats lunch in peace, because peace is the native air of the state she has assumed. 5 o'clock, if the landlord calls, she speaks from the man who has already paid, not the woman still hoping to. 9 at night, she sleeps easily, because she has spent the whole day being the woman for whom the third day has already dawned. Same 24 hours, same empty inbox, same bank balance, and yet 2 entirely different lives lived inside them. Notice too that nothing about her outer circumstance permitted this feeling. Nothing on the page gave her leave to feel relief. She simply took it, the way a key does not ask the lock's permission before it turns it. That is the whole secret of living in the end. It is not the fact that creates the feeling, it is the feeling that creates the fact. The fact is only ever the last thing to arrive. It is the messenger, not the sender. So stop waiting at the door for the messenger and start living as though the message has already come. Because the moment you do, you are no longer hoping for the third day, you are simply remembering it. And remembering, unlike hoping, never trembles. Now the third key opens a door I want to hand you gently before we continue. Because feeling the end for one day is a beginning, but living it daily is a discipline. And there are those who are ready to build that discipline with real structure. 21 days, one state held without wavering. If that is you, stay with me. We will speak of it properly near the end of this teaching. Now let us continue. The fourth key is this, and it is the one most people skip because it asks something of them. Neville taught it as revision, which simply means that no day is final until you have gone back through it in imagination and rewritten it the way you wished it had gone. Most people think the past is fixed, that what was said, that what was seen on the statement was seen and cannot be unseen. But imagination does not deal in what happened. Imagination deals in what is, and what is only ever a state you are currently occupying. So pause for a moment and pick one real conversation from today that left you feeling small or afraid about money. Maybe it was your landlord's tone. Maybe it was your own voice apologizing for asking for what you are owed. Now, in your imagination, run it again. Hear it the way you wished it had actually gone. Hear the confidence in your own voice. Hear the ease in theirs. Feel it as real as you can bear to feel it. This is not pretending. This is correcting the only record that ever mattered, the one written in your own consciousness. Because that record, not the banks, not the calendars, is what is quietly building your tomorrow. I revise this day, and it obeys me now. Before we go on, let me say this plainly, and then let it rest. If you carry a wound from today, some money moment that stung, do not carry it into the night unrevised. Tonight, revise before you sleep. And if this teaching has met you where you actually live, subscribe so that tomorrow's teaching can find you the same way. The fifth key is this, and it is the deepest one, so let us walk it slowly, in pieces, the way Neville himself would unfold a truth too large to hand over all at once. First, consider what Neville called everyone is you pushed out: the landlord, the boss, the stranger who suddenly offers you work. None of them are separate from you, the way you have been taught. They are your own assumptions given flesh and sent walking through the world. When you meet coldness everywhere you turn, it is not because the world has turned cold. It is because some cold assumption is living quietly in you, unnoticed, humming beneath your days. And when at last one person treats you with sudden, unexpected warmth, that warmth was already inside you before it ever wore a face. So if everything just got worse this week, and every person seemed to be against you, do not begin by trying to change them. Begin by asking what state you have secretly been assuming about yourself, because they were only ever the mirror, never the source. And this is worth sitting with a moment longer, because most people spend their whole lives negotiating with the mirror, pleading with it, arguing with it, trying to rearrange the reflection with their bare hands, while the face that casts it goes untouched. You do not need the landlord to soften. You need the assumption that made him seem hard to dissolve quietly inside you. And the moment it dissolves, you will find, almost comically, that his voice on the phone has changed before you ever said a word to change it. Second, consider the actual mechanics of assumption, and here Neville gave us something so simple it is almost missed. He taught that the state akin to sleep, that drowsy threshold right before you drift off at night, is the doorway through which imagination passes most easily into fact. In that state, your critical faculty, the part of you that argues and doubts and checks the evidence, grows quiet, like a guard finally nodding off at his post, and in that stillness, whatever scene you imagine sinks in unopposed. Picture a man named Daniel, 3 months behind on his van payment, lying in bed with his jaw tight, replaying the repossession notice line by line. And one night, exhausted from the replaying, he simply stops. He lets his shoulders drop into the mattress. He lets his breathing slow, and instead of the notice, he imagines his brother calling to say the loan is handled. He feels the specific relief in his chest. He hears his brother's exact laugh. He feels his own hand relax around the phone. It lasts less than a minute before sleep takes him, and that is the whole of it. No ceremony, no chanting, only a tired man letting one true feeling slip in through an unguarded door. So tonight, when you feel that heaviness behind your eyes, that pull toward sleep, do not waste it scrolling. Do not waste it worrying about tomorrow's bill. Instead, lie still. Let your body grow heavy and loose, and construct one small scene, not the whole story of wealth, just one small natural scene that implies the money has already come. Perhaps you feel yourself signing the back of a check with ease. Perhaps you feel a friend's hand shaking yours in congratulation. Perhaps you simply feel the specific relief of a paid balance. Make it brief, make it sensory. Feel the pen, feel the hand, feel the relief. And let that single feeling carry you down into sleep, like a small lit lamp carried into a dark room. Neville taught that this is not decoration, this is the actual mechanism. This is imagination creating reality in the most literal and undramatic way there is. And notice, Daniel did not fall asleep certain the van was saved. He fell asleep only certain of the feeling, and the feeling was enough. Because the feeling is always the parent, and the fact is only ever the child that comes looking for it later. Third, Consider why this always takes what feels like 3 days, and here the old scripture opens all the way. The first day is the day you decide, quietly, without fanfare, that you will assume the end no matter what the senses report. This day feels like almost nothing. A small private choice made in a kitchen or a car or a bed at midnight. The second day is the day of testing, and this is the day most people abandon the assumption, because the second day often looks like more evidence of the old state. The phone still doesn't ring, the number still hasn't moved, and Neville warned that this is exactly where the impatient lose everything they have already built. Because they mistake the silence of the second day for failure, when it is only the hidden work of growth. A seed does not announce its progress underground. It does not send word up through the soil to reassure the farmer. It simply works, unseen, in the dark, and the farmer who trusts the process waters anyway. And the third day is the day the assumption, held without wavering, breaks the surface as fact. This is not superstition about the number 3. It is the honest shape of how consciousness moves from feeling into form. 2 days of unseen labor, and on the third the harvest. So if you feel today like the second day, like the day nothing yet shows, let that be good news instead of despair, because the second day has only one purpose, and that is to be followed by the third, fourth, and this ties the whole key together. Remember that the I am within you, the plain awareness that has been reading every word of this teaching, was never afraid to begin with. Fear belongs to the state, not to you. You have simply been standing so long in a frightened room that you forgot there was a door. But the door has been open this entire time. Every single key in this teaching is only ever asking you to remember that you are the one who can walk through it. And this is why Daniel's story matters more than it first appears. He did not fix his van payment by working a fourth job or begging a stranger. He fixed it by remembering, for 60 quiet seconds before sleep, who he actually was beneath the worry. Your money is 3 days away, not because 3 days is a magic number, but because 3 days is simply enough time for a held assumption to stop being a wish and start being a memory of something that already happened. I am the one who assumes, and the assumption always wins. The sixth key is this, and it is the gentlest one, so let it land softly. Persistence in the assumption is everything. Neville taught that the difference between the one who receives and the one who gives up is rarely talent, rarely luck. It is simply who stayed in the state long enough for it to harden into fact. And I want you to see how ordinary this failure looks, because it never announces itself as giving up. It disguises itself as being reasonable. It disguises itself as just checking, just once more, just to see. Think of the man who plants a garden in the spring. He turns the soil. He presses the seed in with his own thumb. He waters it faithfully on the first evening, and on the second morning, unable to bear not knowing, he kneels down and digs a little to see if anything has changed. Of course nothing has changed. It is the second day. It is supposed to look like nothing, but he digs anyway. And in digging, he tears the very roots that were reaching down in the dark, doing exactly what they were made to do. He does not mean to destroy his own harvest. He simply could not stand the silence. And Neville would say, this is precisely how most people lose their assumption. Not through disbelief, but through impatience, dressed as diligence. So do not go looking at the tomb. Do not check the statement 4 times an hour, hoping to catch the resurrection happening. Do not ask the same friend 3 times if she has heard anything yet. Do not read the silence as a verdict. The mother who plants a seed does not dig it up each morning to inspect the roots. She waters it once, gently, and walks away, and trusts the dark soil to do what dark soil has always done long before she ever arrived to doubt it. Let your assumption rest the same way, undisturbed, unchecked, simply fed each night with feeling. A few quiet minutes before sleep, nothing more, nothing frantic, and let the third day arrive in its own time, because it will. It always has, for everyone who has ever actually held the state instead of merely visiting it once and abandoning it at the first silence. And here is the mercy hidden inside this key. You are not being asked to force belief, you are only being asked to stop interrupting what you have already begun. The seed does not need your anxious hands, it needs your steady trust. So, if today is quiet, let it be quiet. If tonight looks no different than last night, let it look no different. The looking was never where the work was happening anyway. I remain in the feeling, and the fact must follow. Here is the whole picture. It is not punishment. It is clearance. It is not your identity. It is only a room you are standing in. It is not the fact that creates the feeling. It is the feeling that creates the fact. It is not the past that is fixed. It is only unrevised. It is not other people who must change first. They are only you pushed out. And it is not luck that decides who receives. It is only who stayed. And underneath all 6 of these there was only ever one key turning, again and again, in the same lock. And that one key is this: your consciousness is the only reality there is. Everything you have called worse this week was only ever the old state leaving loudly on its way out the door. And everything you long for is already true the instant you dare to feel it true. If you are ready to stop visiting that feeling for a night and start living inside it every single day, we built something for exactly that. It is called the 21-day reality shift. 21 days of guided assumption. One state held without wavering, morning and night, until it is no longer something you are practicing, but something you simply are. It is available now for a gentle investment, and it carries a full refund if it does not meet you where you stand. You will find the link in the description below. I am provided for right now. I am safe in this present moment. Imagination creates my reality. Whatever fell apart this week was only ever the 2 days doing their quiet work in the dark. So rest now, hold the feeling gently, and let the 3rd day come, because it is already on its way, and it was never anything but yours.